Everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Standing Stone podcast. It is a grouse hunting or grouse guiding recap. A lot of things happened during the guiding season, and I just finished up with the grouse portion of our guiding season. I do this in South Dakota. This is the third year that I have guided full-time. And then before that, we've hunted for years and years before that. It's a growing thing and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of that entry into hunting season for me. It allows to extend the season, get the dogs out there early. And I've been utilizing it for the last few years as a teeth cutting ground, if you will, for the young dogs. Let's start to get them in shape. Let's help to prepare them for ultimately pheasant hunting or pheasant guiding that happens after that. And then some of those dogs got the opportunity then to roll into our guide string in South Texas, El Tesoro, to hunt quail. It's a really fun time of year to be able to incorporate young dogs into learning and help them to not only hunt a semi-challenging bird, but better prepare them for the pheasant season. Gives me a little idea into things that I need to work on. And I want to go over specifically all of the pieces kind of from start to finish, essentially. The preparation leading into that, the dogs that I brought with me. I'm going to be going over specific weather, how that affected and helped or hurt our hunting season. Some of the different groups that we got to hunt with, kind of talk through some of the different pieces. And then also mention here in the beginning, I'll go over if you are interested in this. I'm actually looking to add another group slot for the 2026 season. So next year, trying to add another spot in that because of how good the hunting is and the additional ground that I've been able to pick up. We have lots of room to rotate, lots of room to provide fresh ground for each group. And it's a very unique experience with some really pretty views and it's just totally different than if you haven't hunted prairie grouse. It's definitely something you need to add to the bucket list if it's not already there, and then check it off with me. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I think one of the best places to start chronologically would be preparation of the dogs themselves. And I want to start with listing them off. Okay. On my truck, I took Quinn and Duel and Thunder and Riot and Splash, Mags, Pocket, and Maddie. All of those dogs I own. Some of them are part of the El Tesoro development program. And then Maddie happens to be a dog from our program that was in full-time training. That one, the gentleman that actually owns her was coming to hunt with me. So I brought her along because she was actively in training and he was going to be there. And I said, this will be a perfect opportunity. And I have a really cool story that we'll get to later about Maddie specifically and her owner and how that all kind of worked together. So you have to stay tuned for that here in a minute. But those are the 8 dogs that I brought with me. I have our preseason routine. We've done a lot of different videos talking about how we prepare the dogs for the hunting season. A lot of it involves roading and pad conditioning, as well as we take the time to make sure that they're ready. We've done the things, bird and gun introductions, and we've killed birds over them, and they're well trained. Most of these dogs are taken a little bit further than what I said are the bare minimums in one of those previous videos. They've been taken a little bit further. Most of them have formal retrieving work or were somewhere kind of timeline-wise. It didn't 100% work out. Some of them were in the middle, and we were able to work through pieces of that. But all in all, the key was the roading process. I cannot stress this enough. We offer the product as well. It is called, there are 2 versions, Pad Tough and Tough Foot. We currently have in stock the Tough Foot, and but it goes hand in hand. They're basically the same, and just they've struggled sometimes over the years. So interchangeably, Pad Tough or Tough Foot are both really, really good products, and we have them available on standingstonesupply.com. But we spray pads, and then we run them on gravel roads. This is our driveway, which helps to toughen, strengthen, and start that process. You have to think about it much like a new pair of boots. If you just put them on and then go hike all day long, you are most likely going to end up with some form of blister or hot spot because the boots weren't broke in and you weren't used to them and your feet weren't ready. And you have to prepare those. Otherwise, the dogs end up in the same boat with blown pads. They get blisters on the pad spots. Those rip off. They're very tender, very sore. So we start that. It usually happens mid to late summer. We try and get 30 to 60 full days of roading, 5 to 7 days a week. And it's just a short loop down and back on the driveway. So it's 1 mile. We're not utilizing this a ton for conditioning aspect of things, but we do incorporate some heat conditioning or preparation by roading them later in the day and gradually working into where they're doing that loop when it's warmer and warmer and warmer, always making sure to stay pay really close attention to the dogs themselves. It is a short loop. It's very controlled, so they don't generally get too hot, but we do need to be cognizant of that. Making sure our dogs don't get too warm while acclimating them to the warmer temperatures that they're ultimately going to have to run and hunt in. Because we can't do a 5-minute loop bird hunting, though some of that did come into play. So we got them ready that way. The next piece is mid to late summer, the end of summer. That's the highest risk for your grass-on infection category, all right? We utilize, this is another product available on Short. Almost everything that I talk about products-wise, we carry at standingstonesupply.com, and that's because we want people to have access and easy access to all of the things that we're recommending in one place. So the OutFox masks, when we do free runs early in the morning, we have the dogs run with those on because it prevents, that's when they're going to be doing the most big running type of environment, which is going to cause them to get the warmest or the hottest, essentially, and then they're breathing the heaviest and have the greatest risk of inhaling grass seed. So they wear OutFox masks anytime we do free runs, and the free runs, are to help with conditioning. And then the pad conditioning side of things is done roading, specifically on our gravel road, and then we are spraying every single day with Pad Tough or Tough Foot. So all of that being said, it was very evident that the program that we run for this preseason conditioning works. The dogs are very much prepared. I had 0 pad issues the entire time I was up there. I saw maybe just a smidgen of soreness around some of the edges of pads, and I actually keep the Tough Foot with me up there and spray pads after hunts, especially if I see anything in my tailgate checks. We go over, did they run into something, or do they have any kind of injuries, or is there anything going on at the end of the hunts or the end of the day when I'm feeding? Generally is when I do it and they're on the chain. And very minimal to non-existent pad issues, and the minor issues I did spray with Tough Foot while we were up there hunting. So preseason conditioning works. And the way that I can really tell that it was beneficial is the other dogs that came up, a lot of them were gassed very quickly in comparison. And they all commented on it. I was like, wow, your dogs are so much better shape or so much better prepared for this than ours. They are out hunting them. And you typically have let us run our dogs earlier in the morning in the even easier situation than you're putting your dogs out as the second loop because ours are gassed and they're lasting longer in the hotter temperatures and all of those things. So those two pieces of free runs with the OutFox masks on and roading and incorporating the temperature acclimation by moving those roading times into a little bit later in the day where it's warmer and warmer and warmer, even to the point of roading when it's 80 or 90 degrees, so that it's that short controlled loop. They are getting used to some of the heat. I do this with myself even. I tend to run in the summer, in the mid to late morning into even early afternoon. I like to, this is a side note, but from a health standpoint, I like to fast. And then there's different studies that talk about exercising at the end of a fasting period. So I will typically run 3 to 4 miles. It can be 90 to 100 degrees outside, and then come in after that, cool down, and eat my first meal of the day. But it's neither here nor there. The dogs seem to benefit from that acclimation as well. And the last piece of the preparation aspect of things, we talked about hunting ability or training ability. We make sure that the dogs, I kind of touched on that and then got lost a little. the dogs themselves, we need to be prepared for the season, meaning all the dogs that were with me, collar conditioned to whoa, collar conditioned for recall. They've had birds killed over them. Most of them had gotten through formal retrieving work or were kind of partway through it. And we did have to work through that a little bit during the season, but also beeper conditioning. I run beeper collars on all of my dogs for a number of reasons. One, we're in shortgrass prairie, and that region makes it a little bit easier to see dogs 99% of the time. Even during the pheasant season, they can't get too far away that I can't audibly hear them with the locate function on that 5300. It carries a pretty good distance. And I run them on point mode, which there was one very specific situation where we'd actually walked past Thunder, who was buried up in buffalo berry bushes, which can be pretty thick. He was in there on point. I walked past him, and then I hear the beep from slightly behind us, and he had pinned down a bird there. So the beepers are very beneficial in that regards, being able to find dogs that are on point. Or if I lost sight of somebody for a minute, I can actually hit that beeper for a second to go beep, 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 beep. Oh, you're over there. I see, or I can hear where you're at now. And it prevents me from having to try and handle dogs, which may have been working a bird or anything else that way. It makes it a lot easier too during the pheasant season, where there's a lot more cover that I can't see them. I can hear where they are at and know whether or not I need to handle them or not, especially with the longer lines. They may not be super close to me, but they're close to somebody hunting, doing what they're supposed to. So we have to beeper condition the dogs so that that noise doesn't startle them or doesn't cause any kind of apprehension. It takes a little bit of time, generally just covering the beeper, because it is fairly loud to begin with. And then after they've gotten comfortable with that, pull half the tape off of it, then pull all the tape off of it, and you're usually good to go. It doesn't take more than a few sessions, maybe 2 or 3, but that needs to be incorporated into your field work in training. They wear the beeper. I usually, so that it's not, because the beeper going off when they are on point actually has a motion sensor in it. When they stop and lock up, there's a setting called point mode that it will only go off and beep when they are locked up on point or stop moving. That is how I hunt with them, because I don't like to listen to the beepers all day long. But when I'm training and prepping for this, I let them run on run mode. So they beep all the time. They just beep faster when the dog actually locks up on point. So I typically start that progression by running it on run mode, so that's not such a big difference. And then once the dogs are comfortable with that locking up on point, the beeper's not a distraction, then I switch over to point mode, so it does actually go off once they've locked up on point. And it takes dogs, a bird or two to adjust to that. So it's good to work through those things. But I have dogs that are very well trained and developed and handleable, but lack a lot of wild bird experience. Specifically speaking, Quinn, this would be like her 1.5 year into the trip, or 1.5, because she got a little bit of experience late season running as a puppy. She went up for a late season hunt with me, and she did get into some wild pheasants and some wild grouse. It was a really cool experience. I believe she pointed multiple hens and pointed maybe a rooster. I don't know exactly on that, but she did point multiple pheasants, which was really, really cool, and got the opportunity to retrieve a few birds. Mags, this is Quinn. It's also a Piper Dock puppy. Mags is a Trix Onyx puppy, and this is her first trip up on wild birds. Isaac actually raised her, did a really nice job. She's well trained and points birds and backs and handles really, really well, but needs that wild bird experience. Riot was definitely his first trip. Duel, this would be her second trip. She did get to hunt with me pheasant season last year and did a nice job retrieving a few birds, but she came into the category of a little more experience, and it showed. She got the opportunity to retrieve multiple of the birds that we shot and did point a grouse. So getting a ton of them pointed isn't always the case, and I'll explain why this year we struggled with that a little bit more here in just a minute. But Thunder, old pro, Splash, seasoned vet as well. They did a really nice job. Both of them pinned down birds, retrieved a bunch of birds, did a good job that way. Pocket, this was her second trip. She got to hunt actually in grouse season with me last year, and then came into heat, and I swapped her, so she didn't hunt pheasant season with me. But and then Maddie, like I talked about, this was her first trip, and her owner was coming up to hunt in one of the groups. So lots of young dogs. But the key being with that is they had a lot of the pieces that prepared them to be more than prepared for their first hunting season. You don't need all of those things. You need the 3 minimums, which is recall, bird and gun introduction, and I coupled 2 of them into one with bird and gunfire introduction. But those are the 3 minimums. If you've got at least that, you're ready to go. The additional things like WOA training is really helpful. Formal retrieving work or a trained retrieve is really nice as well. And having worked through things like beeper conditioning and things like that really, really helps. The new 5300 model was sweet this year. It allowed me to run 4 dogs on 1 transmitter. My trailer setup is 8 dogs. So I have 4 dogs, 1 transmitter for the driver's side, 1 transmitter for the passenger side. Each dog goes back in their boxes are all labeled. They all go in the exact same place. And the reason for that helps me to know if someone had an accident or something happens. I know exactly which dog was there. I know who it was. So there's no question ever. I didn't just dump a bunch of dogs and go, oh crap, was Thunder in that box where there was an accident? Probably not, but maybe one of the puppies and they're having diarrhea because they drank water out of the puddle in the bottom of the, coulee or whatever and got an upset stomach. I need to be able to know specifically who the dogs are so we keep them in the same box. But I was able to keep 1 collar set for the driver's side, 1 for the passenger, and that makes it really easy that I'm not swapping collars and it keeps things more efficient as I'm hunting and allows me to air dogs if I need to and all of those pieces. So the 5300 finally having a 4-dog unit is really cool as a pro. But if you even just have 1 dog, it's a sweet unit with very, very cool features from the beeper, vibrate, jump features on that. It's awesome. You need to check it out if you're at all interested in a new beeper collar. Now, we've talked about the dogs. We've talked about the preseason aspect of things, but now it's really time to get into the season itself. I was up there for 21 days. I hunted 15 of those, I believe. For sure, 15 hunt days early. Yeah, should have been 21 days. But 15 for sure hunt days. Okay, we shot 78 grouse. It's not limits. That's not what I look at that aspect from. I feel like we were a little bit light of where we could have been, but that was due to weather. And weather affected the season the most that I've ever seen. And it's because it was all different. So to begin with, it's dry land country. It's a fairly dry area on average. It doesn't rain a ton. And when it does, things dry up quickly. But they got a lot of rain. I think some of the areas saw upwards of 4 to 5 inches of rain the week leading up to us arriving. So it did a number of things. One, it made it harder to get to some of the areas that we would typically hunt because it's kind of a gumbo-y mud in the area that we're at, that if it's wet at all, it turns to snot. And we may be 5 to 10 miles on dirt roads back to some of these spots that we're hunting. You cannot get there if it is wet. So that threw a wrench in, the wet threw a wrench in the opening weekend for some of the spots. But then the other side of it is all of that rain changed humidity levels, I believe, and dew point to the point where we were fighting dew on the grass and the alfalfa and the different places that we typically hunt until sometimes upwards of 10, 11 o'clock. You're still at that 10 o'clock walk. I'm getting wet all the way to the top of the grass, basically soaked all the way through my boots and my pants, and everything is wet. The grouse are not going to spend much time in cover that they're going to also be soaked in. So it changes their patterns. Now, you say, well, just wait for the dew to come off. Then comes in the second problem. It's seasonably warm that time of year, but the last few years, it has not been this seasonably warm or this warm, this late in the season for as many days. Sometimes we'd see an 80 to 90 degree day. The first, 2 weeks that I was there, the highs were in the 90s almost every single day, upper 80s, 90s, every single day. And then if we're fighting dew until 10, 11 o'clock, dew finally comes off and it's 90 degrees. Makes it very hard to get enough time in to be able to find them because the different cover that we hunt, and I have a few videos. I'll try and get these shared across here. so that they can be pulled up. But some of the cover that we hunted there, you can see it's big rolling plains with different pockets of berry bushes and rose hips, snowberries, all of those different berry type things. The birds eat a lot, and they also eat bugs. But when they don't necessarily want to be early in the morning, you see them sitting on fence posts or sitting on lines, power lines, or flying out to really, really light cover. Yes, we could go chase them at that point in time. But what I ran into is, I mean, they can see you in really light cover. They don't feel safe, so they get up and fly. So we would, walking around, move groups of birds way too far out in front of us. We have zero chance. And then you try and see where they go, and it's like, oh, wow, they didn't set down. They just kept flying forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And they're, still flying. Okay, let's go try and find some more. So we fought some rain, and we fought some heat, which is abnormal, but we still were able to do a pretty good job overall. And then things changed weather-wise. On October 5th, I believe, right before the last group, we got a cool spell that dropped in, and then we were highs in the low 70s, and that was absolutely perfect. We got to hunt for a few hours every day then, which is no issues, and gave us the opportunity to check multiple spots instead of just guessing. Hopefully they're in this one that was the only little area that we have to hunt, because otherwise we're going to end up killing dogs running them when it's 90 degrees. So we, with that specific group, had the ability to hunt a lot, and it was a lot of fun, which is more typical to be able to hunt 3, 4, 5 hours and, maybe have one day that it gets too hot. And then the last piece that we did fight, which is something I've always struggled with. I would love to hear comments if people have ideas for me, but I struggle with the wind. In the wind, if it's blowing, I'm not talking a light breeze, 10 to 15 miles an hour. I'm talking wind, 20, 30, sometimes 40 mile an hour gusts, but heavy, sustained wind levels. I struggled to get on the birds. It seems like they're flightier. You see groups of them. They're getting up 200 yards ahead of you, and for no apparent reason. I just think they're less comfortable is the biggest conclusion that I can draw, and they don't sit tight. So we struggle with wind days, but most of the days we didn't have too many issues with wind, just heat this year. And all in all, we put together some really, really good hunts, made some things happen that were awesome. So Maddie specifically, I talked about a story with her. Her dad came up to hunt, and we got to one of the first spots, and I was like, you come with me. I'll be handling the dogs to start with. And I've got Maddie on the ground, and we'll make this happen. So we get to kind of worked around this edge of a hill. And when I'm talking short grass prairie side of things, it's, if you're in grass much over your knee, you're probably in the wrong place-ish, but you want kind of a diverse, not a monoculture. You want some weeds and some berries and some different types of grass through there is where I see seem to be most successful. But we're walking, and they're not going to be down on the bottom, but it was kind of on the edge of two little ridges. They like the little plateau spot. And I said, well, get up on that side and I'll come up on this side. Well, Maddie ran up with him, and I was about to tell him, she's young. She's been kind of false pointing a few grasshoppers and doing some things like that. And if she locks up on point, try not to pay too much attention to it so that she doesn't think that those things are important. Just keep walking, and she'll eventually figure out what birds are. Well, I'm glad I didn't say anything, because she literally runs up on top of the hill, locks up on point. And I was like, I should have said something. And I kid you not, 10 feet in front of her, there goes a sharptail. He shoots it. Boom. She picks it up, delivers it to hand. It was, I couldn't have said, hey, Grouse gods, I need to set this up for Maddie so that she looks really, really, really good for her dad. I couldn't have painted the picture better if I had tried to. It was absolutely fantastic being able to see the young dog click the things together and to do it when it counted, which is when dad was literally standing there, and then he made the shot and all of those pieces. And we had a little side wager on first bird down, and so he won the pot too, which all of those things, lots and lots and lots of fun. It was a very cool experience for Maddie. So now, with the next piece of this, we're talked about weather specifically and how that kind of affected, how it affected things and how things change. The next piece was crops. Because they had been so dry through the year, and I'm talking about it's wet and giving us fits, they'd been really, really dry the beginning part of the year. And a lot of crops were insuranced out, or they were cutting corn for silage and things like that, which was way early. They were cutting beans early. They were doing things that were unseasonably normal for that area where we're out South Central South Dakota. Everything was getting cut early. And in those things of getting cut early, it was pushing birds to say, well, I can't really sit out in this wet grass and eat bugs like I normally would and berries. So I'm going to fly over here to where they just cut this nice cornfield and I'll eat corn. And we killed birds on the edge of cornfields. We killed birds that had been eating wheat. We killed birds that had been eating soybeans, which typically doesn't happen until it gets colder for me. Most of the time, we hunt alfalfa fields or near alfalfa fields in the morning, and then shortgrass prairie later in the day, and then hit those berry pockets and things of that nature. That's more traditional early season grouse hunting. Now, the big change with that is, or the key that I can give you with that is being able to pay attention and make adjustments. When you finally find them, if you're struggling from what you heard or thought or knew or thought you knew, you need to make adjustments. So instead of continuing to try and hit alfalfa fields, we just started hitting the edges of all of these grain fields. If the birds are going to move to that, let's go ahead and hunt those. And then we started getting even more successful, and it's just an adjustment. And all of these changes in weather and wind and rain and crop cuttings and things like that required a ton more scouting than I normally have to do too. Now, maybe thinking, how do you scout for grouse? Well, for me, it typically was just being out there at daybreak, which is a time that's difficult unless you want to pass shoot birds to be hunting because they're flying around a lot. They move a ton. Usually I let them settle right after sunlight before we go after them. So we wait an hour or so and have been most successful in that zone, letting the dew disappear, which usually doesn't take much time that time of year. But this year it was taking more. So I would drive around on my days off or in the morning, and we would look because you can see groups of birds flying and set down over there and over here, and then targeting the areas that they're flying to. So we've got a better idea of where to hunt because our hunting windows were cut down so short, meaning only an hour or two. And for the most part, early in the morning, those birds were flying to the very tippity tops of the hills that had the least cover on it, which made them difficult to get to. But as the day warmed up and the grass dried off, what I found that they were doing is just crawling off the top of the hill down onto the shaded side of the hill or getting into those berry bushes, which were near where they were at. So waiting a little bit and then targeting those areas where they got some thermal protection, where it was so hot, made a huge difference. So keeping in mind when you are hunting or attempting to target a specific species that you need to remember what is working and then try and apply that more. Don't beat a dead horse. Don't just remember what you did in the past or try over and over and over what someone told you to do. If you have any success at all, adjust. Make those adjustments toward the things that are working really well. And we had some really, really good hunts. So, I got a brand new box for the truck, and I'm going to be doing another video, so you need to check the main channel here for a video showing the new box and how that works. But one of the additions to that is Starlink. I have no affiliation with them, but Starlink mobile satellite for that has worked fantastic. A lot of these areas are really, really remote, and we rely very heavily on Onyx to make sure we're in the right place, on the right property, and know where we're hunting. And doesn't work if your phone doesn't work and you're in SOS mode unless you download things ahead of time, which can take a lot of preparation. But having the internet on the truck, it worked flawlessly everywhere we went, and that made a huge difference. So definitely be looking for the new video with me going through the walkthrough on the new box. It's pretty sweet. All right, so at this point, I kind of want to go through what a typical day would look like on the guided hunt, and that includes me, the guests, the dogs, what we are doing. In the morning, I cook breakfast. I'm a one-man show up there, so you have to suffer through, which most people say the food's pretty good, but you got to suffer through my cooking. But We eat breakfast if you want to, and then we roll to the field, usually not terribly early, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, something along those lines. And we hit the spots then right as that dew's coming off. If you brought your own dogs, you have the opportunity to hunt them. If we have a full group, which is 5 guys, we usually break into 2 groups of 3. I go with one to make that 6th person. And we make little loops that take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on how big they are, and then circle back to the truck and then move to new areas. Some of the ground that we have is really, really cool up along the Missouri River. Other pieces are northwest, which is as far away from the Missouri River as you can kind of get in that. But at the same time, it looks similar. It's just usually a little bit drier. And then the other, we get into some areas that are definitely more agriculture based, and we do hit way more alfalfa there. And then also like the corn and the wheat and the soybeans, those areas are down south of where we were hunting is the southern parts, excuse me, were where the majority of the agriculture hunting was done. But we will usually hunt for a few hours, eat a sandwich in the field, or hunt, depending on how hot it's going to be, hunt until it gets too hot, and then eat a sandwich midday, early day, relax with the dogs, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. That's the cool part about the grouse hunting side of things is you're very remote for a majority of it, and you get to just be out there where it's quiet and relaxing and take care of dogs, listen to a little music. It's fun. But then come back in the evening and eat dinner. I take care of those things, and we had tomahawk steaks and smash burgers and all kinds of stuff. So that portion was fun. Now in these loops, though, I'm typically running anywhere from 2 to 4 dogs, which sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of ground to cover. A big part of the grouse hunting side of things is finding them. And if we're 100 yards away on the other ridge, we're not necessarily going to bump the ones that are over there on a normal day. If we have a little extra dog coverage and a couple people to spread out, we can find them. And if we find them, early season stuff specifically, they typically fly a direction and then they tuck in and spread out. And that's where we can go in and get a bunch of birds pointed. Riot pointed birds just on his first trip here. Quinn pointed birds. Mags pointed and backed, had opportunities for that. Maddie pointed birds. Thunder pointed birds. Pocket pointed birds. Dual pointed birds. I think Splash, I know she pointed birds, but I think it was pretty even. I don't know if anyone that stands out as being the superstar. I mean, Thunder did a really nice job, but I also try and give the young dogs the most amount of experience. So he didn't get to hunt an insane amount to kind of overshadow that. But all in all, everybody got the opportunity to point those birds, but it came from those setups where we kind of bumped a bigger group and they spread out, and then we went in and pinned a bunch of them down. So it's kind of like finding the covey, then chasing the singles. And in that type of hunting, the dogs are running bigger loops. Everybody's carrying water. We're making sure that dogs are staying hydrated and cool. If we need to stop and take a quick break, we can do that to keep dogs from overheating. And then we make a loop back to the truck. We'll drive down that same dirt road that I'm talking to another spot and do the same thing again. Some of the spots we hunt in groups of, the full group of people will make a big push through an area because it just works better that way than splitting up. But giving everybody the most opportunity to see some dog work, get their dogs out if they're bringing them with. And, but for the most part, I'm running 4 dogs at a time. Some of the smaller areas too, but most of this big stuff it's 4 dogs at a time so that we can have as much ground coverage as possible. And it also allows the dogs to get out and work. We may only get 2 or 3 walks, which would be anywhere from 3 to 6 hours of hunting. And they get a lot of time then at that point to be able to run, hunt, learn, and experience what's going on. The biggest thing I think takeaway from me, again, comes back to that beginning preseason aspect of things is how well the dogs did this year. And it's not really that abnormal but this is the first year that we've really had to kind of push in the heat category as much as it did, and they handled it really well. They are, it was just proof that the early season conditioning stuff that we did was very beneficial. So in that day, though, the dog rotation happens in those loops, and every dog on the truck gets a lot of opportunities to hunt depending on the weather. One of the next things that we do on off days, that's another side of it that people always often ask, what do I do in between groups? Well, we help turn the lodge over, get that ready. I have really good help up there that's comes in on off days too. But then I spend a lot of time scouting. The dogs come with me. Usually we get out in an open area and I give them some time. Even though it's a day off, they still aren't running an insane amount, and they are getting on the days, they're not running enough like they do in pheasant hunting because of the weather aspect of things, and they're in really good shape. So even in days off, they need the ability, to get out, stretch their legs a little bit. And so I pull them with Scout those first early morning, pull out into an area where we're out in the middle of nowhere, and I would let them out in groups to run around and kind of play a little bit and go to the bathroom, stretch their legs, and get a little exercise in. Then we come back and prep for the next group coming in. Now, all of that being said, with the scouting side of things, I think that that's the biggest thing that was a change for me this year. I've hunted enough and scouted enough that I've got a really good idea of where things are at, and I haven't had to go looking quite as much to pinpoint. We've been able to say, let's check this, and this spot. And this year I had to really pinpoint, let's check this and this spot, because that's what we were going to have time for before it got too hot. And I wanted to be as accurate as possible. So I spent a lot more time scouting this year, which is a little bit different from years past. All right, folks. So that is a majority of the grouse hunting season. It was a lot of fun. It was a little warmer this year, and we did fight weather just a smidgen, but we still had some really, really good hunts, and the dogs gained an insane amount of experience. I talked about in the beginning, this is kind of the getting them ready for the next step. Now, first and foremost, if you are interested at all, this sounds like it would be fun to come grouse hunt with me early season. I have dates posted for 26 already. I know a few slots are already taken, but if you see something that you're interested in, don't hesitate to reach out. You can go to standingstonekennels.com, and there is a guided hunts tab. Definitely click on that, and it will show you the dates for grouse hunting. And then when I have dates for pheasant hunting, I will post those as well. You can send a contact message right there, or don't hesitate, to shoot me a text or reach out with a phone call just to talk about the possibility of you bringing a group up. Now, moving forward, we come out of the grouse season, and a big part of what that gave me too was a look into some of the things that I maybe needed to tighten up just a smidgen. It allowed me to work through each individual dog as it was their first seasons, to work on handling for recall, making sure that they can adjust to where I'm at with bigger groups and finding me in the collection of people, and handling some wild birds that are relatively tough to get pinned down. And then on top of all of those pieces, prepare them for pheasant season. Pheasant season, which is starting here very soon. This will probably come out right after the start of that up there. But November 1st, I head up to Brown's Hunting Ranch, and we will hunt 2 weeks up there. We've got 8 awesome groups that are going to have the ability to do a very traditional style with cattail sloughs and shelter belts, food plots, CRP grass, all of this more traditional ditch chicken or pheasant habitat, and get to spend the evenings on a beautiful lodge right on the edge of Lake Oahe. I believe I pronounced that properly. And in that, the dogs have a totally new experience. Still wild birds, but they have to stay closer. The cover is thicker. They'll have to be prepared to be handled a little bit more, keeping them in just a smidgen closer, and working on birds that ultimately can be considered a little bit tougher. They run more, so if they're crippled, the dogs have to be on them and stay on them to help retrieve. But the grouse season has prepared has worked through a lot of the kinks that the dogs need to know coming up for pheasant season, as well as I've had a few weeks here to tighten a few things up. And we've made really, really good progress to the point where all of these dogs are going to be absolutely fantastic for the pheasant season. I'm looking forward to getting them back up there, having the opportunity to continue to help these young dogs grow and watch some of the more seasoned dogs really come into their own and show off this season. And anybody that's listening that gets the opportunity to come up and hunt with me this year, I'm looking forward to hunting with you as well. We will see you guys very soon. I think that's all I have for the grouse hunting recap. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, a little insight into the planning, preparation, and the pieces that go into being a guide with bird dogs on wild birds. I'm the guy with the pink gun. Folks, we will catch you in the next episode.